Okay, we're back at it again with the mouse. And this time, I want to put the drivetrain back in. Now, I'm not using the prop engine anymore, but I might as well be actually. So I've already gone ahead and dropped in an engine transmission, 8-speed medium, and a 23-liter V12 going to a double differential, which I'm not sure if it works since the last time I recorded myself building that light tank, but I'm just going to use it anyway. And what I'm going to do is use the applied torque transmission anyway. So the thing that was meant for prop engines, I'm just going to convert the engine to be a prop engine. And use that transmission chip to control it. So one thing I will need is, I'm just going to put it over here so I make use of all my transmissions, so if they get damaged it stops working. But I'm just going to use a prop and I'm going to get that ready. Okay, so I've gone ahead and put a prop down. It's currently inside the transmission. Not really the bit though, because the hitbox only goes to like this part, but it's sitting over here. It's like a visual only thing. But anyway, I went ahead and got one of these, and that just gets access to the base plate. If you want to do this, you could just make this drive with ACF, but this is less of a tutorial and more of I'm building my tank this way because I have brain issues. Anyway, I made it weigh 135, but realistically you could make this weigh as little as possible, because the only thing that matters is the inertia. So another thing is that the gearbox, so all the ratios are basically 1, and I will be putting a ratio on this because these aren't going to be giving me any gear ratios. We're going to be doing that in the transmission. I just have an 8-speed because I want 8 gears, and I want it to be sort of limited by, or confined by ACF, but you know. So what I like to do with this, and I'll talk about in a minute, is basically put an ECU onto it. Well, ECU in quotes, but basically what this does is it gives that little crankshaft some inertia, because it will need it. And it stops it from overspeeding as well. But instead of just that normal driving chip I have, which I really need to update, but you know, I don't really use that version too much anymore. There's a driving chip, this strange ECU thing, which is, well, you only really need it for the inertia, and of course the transmission chip. So, well, the transmission itself basically, which is just a chip. And yeah, we'll come back to this ECU in just a minute. But before that, there is something I do want to do, and that is get this engine out of its RPM range down to no more than 950 RPM. So I think I can run this at like a final drive of 0.25 basically. So I'm gonna go to that double differential, and well, I guess I'm just gonna change final drive. I'm guessing both of those are the same. But basically, I don't want it spinning any faster than about 1,000 RPM. That little shaft there. So there we go. And that is important because in this little chip, it uses some brake force to keep that little wheel from spinning faster than the engine does. But again, that's not important. What's really important is the inertia. So I'm gonna go in here and change the gear ratio. I'm not sure if it matters if it's positive or negative. And for now, I had problems with this tank steering because it's It's very long and not very wide, and also very heavy and underpowered. Right now it's sitting at 5 horsepower per ton. And it's missing the ammo because I took the ammo out as well. And if you're worried about the guns, ACF is acting up a little bit. So, yeah, what was I gonna do? Yeah, let's try some inertia. Let's try 250, I guess. Might as well round it out at like 300. So the crank, if you're gonna use this chip, goes to that little thing. Also, that can be parented, just with the little axis it has. Gearbox is actually the last gearbox that connects to it. And the RPM goes to the engine. While I'm at it, I might as well wire up CTMC, so here we go. Active to engine active, throttle to throttle. This doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, I don't think. Oh, well, I do want the brakes, but we're not gonna touch those just yet. I think that's it for that chip. And the RPM on this version of CTMC goes to the engine. So I guess I can show what the setup is gonna look like. I'm not gonna drive this around. The transmission isn't ready. So what I'm gonna do is have a look through here. I just want to make sure everything's aligned first off. And it looks like it is. This is aligned. So that's good. Don't really care about any of these. Also, I should probably swap these around to be max then min for the power band. But because this is meant for prop engines, you actually have to set certain information about the engine. So that's 2230 to 2950. So 2230, 2950, and we'll just have it idle at around about, I don't know, 700. Now what's interesting is the RPM multiplier is not important right now. Hang on, I just gotta... Okay. Don't worry about that. The RPM multiplier is basically for ACF engines, which is weird because this is meant for prop engines, but because I do the stupid thing where I convert the engine to basically be a prop engine. The RPM will read from this engine to be in the thousands because this is an ACF engine. But what you can do is you can put the final drive, you can multiply it by the final drive to get the true RPM, if you would, of the engine. So mine is coincidentally at 0.25, which is what it's supposed to be at. We're not going to worry about wheel size right now because I'm not trying to drive this thing. I'm just trying to throttle it to see how the engine responds to all the inertia. So, and here's something that's kind of interesting, is the throttle limit. So there's like some basically this was made for turbines, so whenever you shift in a tank that has a turbine, it really launches forward because the turbine doesn't really respond to what your wheels are doing at all, so it just sort of launches. And there's this to basically sort of prevent that. It's taking what the speed of the tank should be and what it actually is, and trying to throttle down and declutch. But right now it's basically useless unless you're using a turbine. So wow, these descriptions are actually backwards. Let's do 0 on this and swap these. Okay. So that should be fine, right? Maximum declutch used to limit slip. We'll just set this to 0. And that should be fine for now. And the rest of this does not matter. We need to come through and reconfigure some of these things like the wheel size and such, but when we got there we just want to throttle the tank. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this. I believe that's everything wired, hopefully. So yeah, let me just save this and I'll respawn this thing outside. Okay, I'm just about ready to give this a test fire, I guess. Not really a test drive, but do want to go ahead and debug this right here, and we'll just see what happens. So looks like it takes too long to build RPM. And also I think I'm gonna have to change the oh, actually no, it seems fine actually. That when it's actually in its power band, which the power band on this is kind of small. No, that actually seems fine. But notice how the brake is just big. That's supposed to be more if it's spinning faster, but it seems like basically my sign is the wrong way. If I was gonna be using the brake, so let me just try set that gear ratio negative. There we go. This is what I'd more expect. Oh, okay. So it's not that the engine can spin it at all, it's just that well, basically this has no drag, so once the engine spins it up, it just ignores it, which is why I want to put the brake on. So let me try that again. Brake. It's a bit rough, but that might be fine. Also, the brakes, it feels a bit over-tuned for keeping it in line, so let's do a lot less brake force. This is I'm gonna lower it down even more actually. 3. And this is not really important at all, but you know. Yeah, that's good. So right now this has too much inertia. Which is a little bit concerning. So let's try 200 instead. And basically I'm just listening for how fast the engine is able to rev. Since adding inertia to that is basically like having a heavier and heavier flywheel. And even though this is kind of slow, I think that'll be fine because this is a big, sort of cumbersome tank. So next up should be taking the energy from this. I should parent this, take the energy from this, and send it to my two drive wheels via the transmission here. It's a mess in here. And then we can set up the driving chip proper. And that should be it. I should probably actually wire the chip up before I try to test anything. So let's go ahead and do that. So, transmission chip. Why is everything wired already? That's nuts. I didn't do anything. It's lying. Crankshaft goes to that prop there. Now on the old MAUS I was using actually separate gear props, but you can you can just wire those straight to the wheel. So you wire the base up if you want some reaction torque. I'm going to kill somebody. Which, yeah, reaction torque is good. It's natural. Go ahead. Wire the gear up to the driving chip. So most of these actually auto wire to the driving chip, so that's good. So the only thing that doesn't auto wire is steer rate, which I should probably rename or something. And CVT ratio, weird. This isn't gonna have a CVT, but just wire it to something anyway. So actually, if you don't wire that, it'll be fine. I feel like there's more to do here. Okay. So remember the inertia that I set my crankshaft to have? Okay. Transmission chip, but before that, let's get the Stacker Improve tool. If you don't have this tool, that is a fat L. But so one thing you want to remember is that front equals 1, right equals 2, and up equals 3. So what you want to remember is which axis this spins around. So in my case it spins around the right axis, so that's going to be axis 2. And for my wheels here, that spins also around the right axis, so that's going to be 2. And okay, so yeah, go ahead and set the axis XI, I guess. I really don't know. Gear direction, one of my wheels is reversed, the other isn't. So I'm just going to leave it here for now. Clutch power, you don't have to ever touch that in a million years. Gear inertia, I'm going to start off with 200. That's the same as my crankshaft. Thank you. So another thing you probably don't want to touch is the gear inertia max. Though I will raise this to, I think I'm going to raise this to 10. Basically what this does is the way the transmission works it will alter the inertia of the gear props. And this is limiting how much it can alter them. So stock inertia, I'm just going to set that to be the same as the gear inertia. This is basically determining how effective your brakes are. And the sensitivity, for tanks, I like to leave it at 0.5. In all this accumulator stuff, we want to zero out because it can actually be bad for well, it can actually just be bad for setting things up. So Arixen, please. Please. Please, kindly, please. I want to drive my tank. Wow, everything's allowed today. This is how you make a pivot gear, -1. Oh, I'm not sure if it has to be -1. Just say it's a -1 anyway, it'll be fine. And this is gear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. So I want it to be like this, 1, 4, 2, 4. You can use fractions, by the way, so this would just be 1.0. And let's do the same for the reverse. Control D to duplicate anything, by the way. So final drive we'll do 0.5, I think. That sounds about right. And that's it for the transmission. So save it, apply it. Now for the driving chip itself, same things that usually... Oh, my wheels aren't gone. My hubs, sorry. No, everything seems to be fine. So the size of these, I use a custom spherical radius of, I believe, 30.5. So this is just some CTMC stuff. So we already did the initial setup. The final ratio is actually the ratio from the transmission chip, so that's 0.5. We're not using a CVT, and the pivot ratio is actually, this is the gear ratio for pivoting. So I believe we'll try that. Not that this is probably going to pivot very well. Let's see, looking at the shift width here, I think we should do something like 700. So this is all CVT stuff, so this doesn't matter. This shouldn't be something like this. Otherwise it looks like it's under the CVT. So yeah, the chip is still very much a work in progress. Method 1 for steering, because we're not using brake clutch. Oh goodness, we're not using brake clutch at all for this. So when using differentials for steering, this is an RPM difference between the two sides. So mouse is gonna have a lot of trouble steering, so we won't try to go very high with this, I don't think. Let's just try, I don't know, 30 and 50. And this is assuming I have well latches, which I don't think I do. So we'll just set these to -1 for now. And I think the rest of this can stay the same. So up here into the power band. So looking at the governor now, I'll do like 100, I guess. And that's it. So now we actually have to make sure everything works and get out of this loud hangar. So see you then. Okay, you'll see what happens. I didn't say that, he's lying. Oh my gosh. Okay. Transmission. Let's see. Does it work? So I'm terrified to put this on the ground, so I'm just gonna test this in the air.
Cat P.
Let's see. Left RPM, right RPM. Yeah, that seems fine. Alright, now I'm going to drop this and see if it can turn at all. Right now all the wheels are paper. It has a lot of trouble spinning, so Does that have a side lane to it? Kinda does. I might, please.
Haha, cat P.
Oh, it actually does steer. Kinda surprising for weighing 50 tons.
Obstacle course.
Does not really do obstacles though.
Been
I wonder if
in
it
the mouse
will
when
actually
they suck.
shift. Oh, it does. Problem is, I am being assaulted, and also, final drive is a bit too high. So let's go ahead and deal with that. I'm actually just gonna leave it there running. I just want to see what the shift speeds are, because I know that this shouldn't really do more than like what, 12 miles per hour, 14, I don't know. So let's see. GB debug. It thinks it can do 33 miles per hour. That's cool. Let's try 0.1 for the final drive. A little bit more. Let's do 2.5. Too much. Let's do 2.2, I guess. Or 2.1. 21. Yeah, that seems about right. So, 0.21 for the final drive. Go ahead and set that in the transmission. And let's see what that's like. Oof, it takes a while for the RPM to build too. Incredibly slow, but well, it's a mouse, so you know. I just want to face that direction and see if it can actually shift. Okay, let's see how it shifts. And that's top gear. Cool, 14 miles per hour. Hold speed relatively well, actually. Oh no. I'm not really sure what's up with the guns, by the way. They were loaded earlier, but something happened and it broke the scaling on the guns. I mean, yeah, that's basically it. It drives really slowly. See if it can pivot, actually. Ooh, just about, actually. Really, really slowly. Yeah, so steering is rough, but it's very long, underpowered, very narrow. So basically what you'd expect. At least the suspension is doing a pretty good job, though I am on flat ground. Okay, so I did a little bit of fiddling around with the mostly gearbox. Actually, I didn't really touch the driving chip at all. But I can show you, I did raise the gear strength a little bit. I went from 200 to 250, and also I raised the gear inertia max because using this final drive and this gear ratio, about a fourth of, let's just say 20 is going to be 0.5 or 0.05 in this case. So I want the gears to be effective there, so I basically just raised this because my gear ratios actually went that low because of the mouse. But actually that's the only thing I really touched. So technically I could play around with this. I wouldn't really touch the drive accumulator as I call it. Technically I could touch this, but right now it's just sort of okay at steering. So let's see. This is neutral steer now. It might not seem like it, but that's quite a bit better than it was at first. And also, normal steering is a little bit tighter. Still loses a lot of speed steering, but yeah, it's a mouse. Even with differentials, actually, or differential steering. And actually, on concrete, it does pretty well for being a tank on concrete. Normally, I actually hate driving tanks on concrete because the wheels are too grippy, and it just eats your speed when you turn. But yeah, on grass, it's better, I guess. And I can drive my stupid little tank around and watch the suspension work. This is probably an awful place to show it, but oh well.